Ah, what a beautiful start to spring. The sun is shining, we have a new chapter, my fellow bird Pokemon are chirping at— Wait, who is that? Alright, eyes forward, pay attention. I'm only explaining this once. You've had a ridiculous run, Moon. 245 chapters for your series, and still thriving. And 77 review videos in total for your channel. Meanwhile, my series? Ugh, I'm not even gonna talk about it. Hey, turn that down! I'm committing identity theft right now! Have some respect for the process! Like I said, I'll be taking over your review series from now on. New manga, new host, makes sense.
What do you mean new manga?
Oh, you didn't know? How interesting. You hear that, viewers? This week is the launch of the first official 100 Girlfriends spin-off manga, and apparently your former host didn't even brief himself on it. How absolutely shameful. You call that professionalism? Understand this, viewer. You're with me now, and that's a good thing. I'm talking about upgrades. Because if there's one thing I don't tolerate, it's incomplete coverage, missing segments, or hosts who get kidnapped during their own intro sequence. And if you have a problem with that, too bad. And you best be hitting that like button down there. Otherwise, you'll end up like that schmuck back there, all tied up. Wait, where did he go? Okay, I think I should be safe here for a while. Oh hey, looks like you escaped him too, viewer. While I call the police, you be sure to go support Sunday for bringing us not only the usual chapters, but now this new spin-off manga as well. And I guess we don't know if 7C's is going to be working on this new manga yet, but might as well thank them for the volumes they have provided so far. Now, on to the review. I'm Moonlight150, and I'm currently on the run from an evil doppelganger of myself trying to take my job. But that won't stop me from reviewing Chapter 1 of the new Rentero's Family's Family Daily Life manga, both written and illustrated by Nakamura himself.
Hi.
Let's do this quickly before he finds me. Speaking of evil doppelgangers, we start off this manga that's all about Rentero's family's family with parallel Nano? You just love to subvert expectations, don't you, Nakamura?
Yeah.
As we catch up with her after she almost wiped out this manga back in chapter 208. We learn that her synchronization of other universes was successful, except for the one that our series takes place in.
Wink, wink.
Crazy to think that our Nano is now the only one of a kind. The rest are all like parallel Nano now. And since our reality was the only one that didn't synchronize, she doesn't find it worthwhile trying again. Though she says that, but she can't seem to help herself but watch our dimension through her Parallel Vision app. Where apparently her Parallel Vision app is also working a little too strong, as she not only views the series, but also breaking the fourth wall, and sees Nakamura panicking how he wants to tell stories about the family members of the main characters, but the series is already too full as is. Seeing the inefficiency of Nakamura panicking, she then grabs a Nozawa from another universe to help Nakamura. Though, plot twist, she didn't grab another Nozawa, she grabbed another Nakamura, due to both of them having that pixelated avatar. She couldn't tell the difference. Neither can I, apparently. But all of this is a waste of time, so now the two Nakamuras will be working together to make this new manga. After that side quest, Parallel Nano makes it back to her dimension only to be met by 36-year-old Shizuka, which apparently within the last 20 years she hasn't grown a single inch. Though these two haven't met until this moment, as Shizuka tracked down Nano to thank her for the invention of these hair clips that acts as speakers allowing her to talk. Because apparently in this world, Shizuka has spent her entire life up until the age of 36 not communicating much with anyone. Because I guess Rentero just doesn't exist in this universe, or only has one soulmate and it's not Shizuka or Nano. Haha, Karane Best Girl wins yet again. After Shizuka thanks Nano for the technology, she wanders off, and Nano decides to work on a newer version of that speaking device, but this one being in the shape of rabbit ears, for no other reason than efficiency, I assure you. Now that we moved on from Parallel Nano, we can actually start by seeing some story of family members, firstly being Hakari's father, as we get a little montage of him lovingly haunt Hari and Hakari, and even witnessing Hari feel the twinge of pain of Hakari's father not being there for her, though everything is better these days as he lovingly watches the anime on Heaven TV. And that's it, that's the whole segment. Okay, now for our actual first story about actual family members that are still alive. The first story revolves around Matsuri's grandparents, specifically Matsuri beginning to question her own verbal tic of ending every sentence with "ya daft sod," and actively wonders when her parents started saying it. Though Grandpa Day doesn't recall, but Grandma Day certainly does, as she begins to flashback to how they met. Turns out 50 years ago, the verbal tic of ending every sentence with "ya daft sod" had been ruining future Matsuri's grandmother's, whose name we now have of Kushiro Barochi, and her dating life for some time now, which isn't surprising given its more literal translation. In case you need a reminder, the overt Britishness of the Day family is a Sunday creative choice. A more direct translation of the Day family verbal tic is something closer to saying "you damn dumbass." Yeah, I can imagine it might be a little difficult to date someone who has that slipping out every other sentence. But in order to improve her chances in the dating field, Kushio lets out all of the daft sod deep in the mountains to get it out of her system before her next matchmaker meetup, to the dismay of all the floor who received all those insults. Upon the meetup, we get to meet future Matsuri's grandfather, whose name we now have of Tenya Day, and we even get to see the zing between them upon meeting. Though things quickly spiral out of control as Kushio's first words out of her mouth is calling him a daft sod, which embarrasses her to the point of panicking and calling him a daft sod a few more times for good measure. And she runs out of the tea house upset that this tic of her will never allow her to marry anyone. But as fate would have it, Tenya, while chasing Kushio, reveals that he also says the same thing at the end of every sentence, which makes them realize they were made for each other. Oh, and we find out this verbal tic comes from the dialect out of here. I guess he just has stronger willpower to not spout it in every line like he did during his introduction. And coming back to the present, we see the family rejoice in the acceptance of their tic, to the point where Kushio even admires the way that Tenya says it, just to get him all flustered and the like, you damn dumbass.
Whoa.
So that was all cute and fine and dandy, but there's one aspect I feel like I need to draw attention to. And no, it wasn't the emotional cruelty to plant life. It's this narrator box right here. Why is it always the narrator boxes that fill me with the most grief, you damn dumbass?
Hey, yo!
When you sit down and think about it, 50 years is not a long time for this kind of time span within family generations. Let me explain, you damn dumbass.
Daddy, chill.
If we are to assume it is exactly 50 years from the present, that has some interesting implications regarding the Day family, such as the conclusion that Matsuri herself is the result of a teenage pregnancy.
What?
Let me explain. Let's take 12 years away from that 50 due to the age of Matsuri herself. We don't have direct confirmation of her being 12, but her being in her first year of middle school, that is most likely her age. That leaves us with 38 years. Now let's factor in the age of Tenya and Kushio. We can clearly see they didn't meet in high school, but beyond that it's a little hard to pinpoint. But given that they are doing things like going to matchmaking events, like the one we see here at this tea house, and Japan's cultural pressure, especially for women to marry within their 20s, I think it's safe to say early to mid-20s for the both of them. But for the sake of simplicity, let's label them both as 20. So taking away 20 from our current number and... oh. Yeah, this has some interesting implications for... oh, wait, we don't know Matsuri's father's or mother's name. Common Japanese name. Akira. Let's just call him Akira so I don't have to keep saying Matsuri's father.
Leave me alone!
And what's even worse for this calculation regarding Akira, this is being gracious in the calculation, saying that Tenya and Kushio had Akira relatively early. Like, I'm sure they aren't 20 here in the story when they met, let alone dating for a bit or popping out a kid just yet. What, are we meant to assume they did it right there on the street when she was crying? So if we give Tenya and Kushio a few more years to their mid-20s to say when they had Akira, oh god, it gets even worse for him. Giving both Tenya and Kushio and Akira the biggest benefit of the doubt, though they don't look it, this meeting could be right out of high school. Maybe the two of them are 19, which gives Akira around 18 or 19 years to have Matsuri. But I mean, let's be real. The way that the story is presented, there is no way that Tenya and Kushio are 18 or 19. These two are clearly in their early 20s. And just to make the timeline fit even more, we have to assume Tenya and Kushiro married and had Akira like almost immediately. Maybe that's the power of soulmates in the zing. But now, taking this new information, this gives a whole new perspective on Matsuri's backstory. Let's rewind back to her introduction, all the way back to chapter 159. Which, fun fact in case you didn't know, when I read the manga for the first time all the way through, Matsuri's introduction was my first brand new chapter when it dropped. When we meet Matsuri, she explains that she was raised by her grandparents. At the time, many of us didn't think much about it, especially when she said that her mother and father are big-time fashion designers, so they were always overseas. Which is a common trope in anime and manga, as it is used to just easily explain away not having parent figures around for all the anime hijinks that happens to the high school characters. But now with this newfound timeline, it paints a slightly different picture. This is gonna get a little fanficky, but hear me out. All I'm doing is connecting some dots and embellishing a little. Timeline of events. 50 years ago, Tenya and Kushio meet, eventually marrying and having Akira probably not very long after. 16 to 17 years later, Akira is now in high school and doesn't plan to continue in the Day family traditions of festival stalls and selling yakisoba, nor inheriting the verbal tic from his parents somehow. Instead, he has dreams of being a world-famous fashion designer, and to learn even more about fashion, he decides to travel abroad after high school, which is another trope in a lot of anime and manga of high schoolers aspiring to learn more about their passions by learning and living abroad, and young Akira does just that, possibly even attending one of the world's largest fashion events, that being Paris Fashion Week. So young Akira packs his bags and travels to Paris where he zings with another high schooler, who is there to learn fashion as well, all the way from England. What's a typical English name? Amelia. Let's go with Amelia. Akira and Amelia meet and very likely zing, and then proceed to not see the City of Lights at night and instead see the inside of their Paris hotel room. A bit of time later, Amelia finds out she is pregnant from that week of fashion and passion. Akira is now distraught that he now has to abandon his dreams of being a traveling world-famous fashion designer to get a steady job and take responsibility for Amelia and the child that is on the way. Tenya and Kushio then decide to become parents of the year and tell Akira that they will take care of and raise the child so that he can continue to focus on his studies and his career, which he takes them up on their offer. Matsuri is then born and is now in full-time care of her grandparents, Tenya and Kushio, while her parents continue to work towards and achieving being fashion designers, where they stop in once in a while to check in on them and spend time with Matsuri, like we saw in Matsuri's Volume Extra backstory, where we see that growing up among festival and yakisoba lovers passed down onto her, along with their verbal tic. Which I'm sure this arrangement is a win for Tenya and Kushio as they now have a family member who actually wants to continue in the family business, unlike Akira, who had no interest at all. And that is the story of how we got the Matsuri that we know and love today. So I know I did a lot of speculating and filling in the gaps myself, but I'll support this story with just a little bit more evidence. Namely that Matsuri backstory I just mentioned. I always found it a bit odd that Amelia here just says the elongated home and nothing else. And then, rereading the whole thing again, I noticed Amelia never directly speaks to Tenya or Kushio, or hell, even Akira. The only time we see Amelia speak is to Matsuri. It's always Akira who is talking to Tenya in this flashback. This to me now reads that Amelia doesn't know much or any Japanese. Maybe she picked up the Japanese word for home and that's why she says home and nothing else, because she can't communicate with Tenya or Kushio, so she just keeps to herself and talks to only Matsuri, while Akira talks with his parents. I think Amelia not picking up much Japanese is a sign that they don't spend a lot of time in Japan. Now granted, in this backstory Matsuri is like 1 year old, so Amelia here just had the whirlwind of a lifetime of getting pregnant right out of high school, where she's supposed to be working towards her career in fashion, and having the kid in Japan in the span of around 2 years. Not a whole lot of time to become fluent in another language, especially if you're spending more time overseas, probably speaking English after the kid is born. So there we have it. My new headcanon that Matsuri is the product of a teenage pregnancy of two people traveling outside of their home countries of Japan and England for their careers, and a whirlwind of a relationship. Now, Amelia could have easily come to Japan and they met in Japan, but I prefer the perspective of, my teenage son went overseas to learn fashion and instead knocked up a foreigner, and now I'm a full-time grandfather taking care of the kid, you daft sod. In all reality, I doubt this kind of backstory was the intention from Nakamura. He probably just picked 50 years and said that sounds good enough to be a long time ago, without doing any math on what that means between grandparents and grandchild. Namely because of how old he makes Tenya and Kushio in both the present day and in Matsuri's Volume Extra. Because according to my timeline, Tenya would be around 40 here after Matsuri was born. Does this look like a 40-year-old to you? Maybe becoming a grandparent after sending your son off overseas just aged him badly. But I do kind of like this hidden aspect of the background of a character, something you only piece together if you're insane like I am.
He's crazy.
And I kind of hope Nakamura doesn't retcon it with any kind of official ages or anything of that sort. And that we have this kind of background secret that the Day family has a trend of having kids young. But we don't have to worry about that with Rentaro because he's a pure soul who won't even touch his girlfriends in that way until they're all older. Wait a minute.
Sex file. Sex file. Sex file. Sex file. Sex file.
Sex file.
Sex file. Sex file. Sex file.
Oh god. Because Matsuri is among the youngest of the girlfriends, she will be one of the last to participate. By that time, many of the other girlfriends will have had their time. Matsuri might be raring to go right out of the gate. Oh god. The Day family trend of having kids young is going to continue with Matsuri. A third generation of having kids before becoming of legal age to drink. Ah! Well, that was a wild trip of a thought experiment from a singular narrator box. I have to stop doing this to myself whenever Nakamura feeds me the slightest bit of solid information. I really need to get going now. I think my cry gave away my location to that other me. So I'll be signing off now to go into hiding until the next chapter, which thankfully doesn't have another long wait period. And much like the topic of today being teenage pregnancy, looks like Mei is going to be doing some child rearing of her own at the age of 19.
I would even be your concubine.
It's all connected. All in all, I really like this approach that Nakamura is doing with this new spin-off series, and the fact that it is an actual spin-off series and not just another installment in the mainline series make it all the more interesting, and I'm curious to find out how often these will be dropping. The parallel Nano story was an amazing entry point to the series of giving an in-universe reason why the spin-off exists, of having two Nakamuras work on it, but in reality it's just him giving himself more work. But I guess it's nice to get confirmation that Nakamura is so confident in his ability to have so much material not only for the main series, but the family members of the main cast that he's willing to make a spin-off manga just to tell these stories. The Hakari's father one was really the only letdown, as it kind of felt like filler, like he had written the parallel Nano story and the Day family backstory and realized he was 2 pages short of a full chapter and needed something simple and quick. This manga is supposed to be giving us more info on these characters, yet this haunting that Hakari's father did and be distressed about not being able to be there for the two of them is just stuff we already knew from his appearance in Volume 3. So I hope going forward the majority of these installments in the spin-off are more like the Day family flashback, giving us backstory or even true side stories within present-day 100 Girlfriends. And if this spin-off series only exists to give us more context and information, I can only imagine what kind of rabbit holes of thought I might fall down like I did with this one. It's, fear-inducing. Anyway, I've been your one and only host, Moonlight150, and be sure to like, comment on how insane my Day family secret theory is, and subscribe if you haven't. And I will see you all on the next installment of the main series and this spin-off series whenever Nakamura drops a new chapter. Have a good week.